ലണ്ടനിലെ ക്രൂസ് യാത്ര കാണാം. അതിമനോഹരമായ ഒരു യാത്രയാണത്. ടിക്കറ്റുകൾ ഓൺലൈനായോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവിടെ നിന്നുള്ള കൗണ്ടറിൽ നിന്നോ നമുക്ക് പർച്ചേസ് ചെയ്യാം. വിവിധ രാജ്യങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള നിരവധി യാത്രക്കാർ ഈ ക്രൂസ് യാത്ര ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നു. കാരണം ക്രൂസ് യാത്രയിൽ അതിമനോഹരമായ കാഴ്ചകൾ തന്നെ കാണാം എന്നാണ് അറിവ്. ലണ്ടനിലെ ഏതാണ്ട് 10-15 മെയിൻ സ്ഥലങ്ങളും പുരാതന കഥകളും പറയുന്ന ക്രൂസ് യാത്ര അതിമനോഹരമാണ്. 4-5 സ്റ്റോപ്പുകൾ നിർത്തി യാത്ര ചെയ്യുന്ന ഈ ക്രൂസ് യാത്ര നമ്മളെ ഏറ്റവും സന്തോഷിപ്പിക്കുന്നതാണ് മറ്റ് കാഴ്ചകളിൽ നിന്നെല്ലാം. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഈ യാത്ര മനോഹരമായിരിക്കുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പോകാനുള്ള ക്രൂസാണ് ഈ വന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. സിറ്റി ക്രൂസ് എന്ന ബോട്ടാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ തിരഞ്ഞെടുത്തിരുന്നത്. ടിക്കറ്റ് കാണിച്ച് ഞങ്ങൾ അകത്ത് കയറി. ഒരു ചെറിയ സ്നാക്സ് ഷോപ്പും ഈ ക്രൂസിൻ്റെ താഴത്തെ ഡെക്കിലുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾ മുകളിലത്തെ ഇരിപ്പിടമാണ് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടത്. കാരണം വെതർ നല്ലതായിരുന്നു കൊണ്ട് തന്നെ അവിടെ ഇരുന്നാൽ മുഴുവൻ കാഴ്ചകളും കാണാം എന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നല്ലോ. മുകളിലുള്ള ഡെക്കിലിരുന്നാൽ എല്ലാ കാഴ്ചകളും വ്യക്തമായി കാണാം എന്ന് തോന്നിയതുകൊണ്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ മുകളിലേക്ക് യാത്ര തിരിച്ചു. വലിയ വിശാലമായ ഒരു ഇരിപ്പിടം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ സീറ്റുകൾ ഇഷ്ടം പോലെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. യാത്രക്കാരും കുറവായിരുന്നു. എങ്കിലും 10-50 പേരോളം ബോർഡിംഗ് ചെയ്തതായിട്ട് തോന്നി. താഴെയും കുറച്ച് പേര് ഇരിപ്പുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ബോട്ടിലിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ പലരും അവരുടെ സന്തോഷം പ്രകടിപ്പിച്ചു തുടങ്ങി. ബോട്ട് പതുക്കെ സ്റ്റാർട്ടായി തുടങ്ങി.
Okay, folks, a very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everybody on board the boats. We're just leaving Westminster and the next stop for this cruise is the London Eye. Okay, now I know it is a very short trip just across the river, but it is part of our scheduled service. Okay, we're going to stop here for a couple of minutes. There might be a few passengers that wish to join us at the London Eye. And when we depart the London Eye, we're heading downriver in this direction, down to Tower Pier and on to Greenwich. Okay, for the time being, please do sit back, relax, enjoy the surroundings, and take some nice photos. Make yourselves at home. You can take your shoes and socks off. We've got a bar downstairs, toilets downstairs at the back of the boats. Whilst the boat is moving, we do ideally like to keep the centre aisle clear at all times, just in the interest of safety. Okay, so if you could just remain in your seats. You can stand at the back of the boat. Okay, you're more than welcome to stand up at the back.
ഇപ്പോൾ ഈ ക്രൂസ് ലണ്ടനയുടെ നേരെ താഴെ അവിടെയുള്ള സ്റ്റോപ്പിൽ പാർക്ക് ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്യും. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ലണ്ടനെ ഏറ്റവും അടുത്ത് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു സാഹചര്യമായിരുന്നു. അവിടെ നിന്നും കുറേ യാത്രക്കാരെ കയറ്റി ആണ് മുന്നോട്ട് പോയത്. ഏതാണ്ട് 4-5 സ്റ്റോപ്പുകൾ ക്രൂസ് ഇവിടെ നീളം നിർത്തുന്നതായിട്ടാണ് പറഞ്ഞത്. ലണ്ടനായി തൊട്ട് താഴെ നമുക്ക് കാണുന്നതാണ്. ഹലോ, ഞാനിപ്പോൾ നിൽക്കുന്നത് ലണ്ടനിലെ സിറ്റി ക്രൂസിലാണ്. നമ്മുടെ മുന്നിലുള്ളത് ബിഗ് ബെന്ന്, പിന്നെ ഈ സൈഡിലുള്ളത് ലണ്ടൻ ഐ ആണ്. ലണ്ടൻ ഐ അവിടുത്തെ സ്റ്റോപ്പിലാണ്. ഇവിടുന്ന് അവർ വീണ്ടും ആൾക്കാരെ കയറ്റിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങൾ കയറിയത് അങ്ങേ സൈഡിൽ നിന്നാണ്, വൈറ്റ് മിനിസ്റ്റർ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സ്ഥലത്തു നിന്നാണ്. ഇവിടെ നിരവധി ക്രൂസുകളുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൂടെ യാത്ര ചെയ്യുന്ന നിരവധി ആൾക്കാരെ ഇവിടെ കാണാം. എല്ലാവരും ക്യാമറയുടെ തിരക്കിലാണ്. ലണ്ടനിൽ നിന്നുള്ള കാഴ്ചയാണ് നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്.
Just to reiterate, we do like to keep the centre aisle clear. Okay, with your cameras, please take your photos to the back of the because we do like to keep the centre aisle clear whilst the boat is moving in London today. For that flag to become a Union Jack, it must be displayed upon the wooden jackmast at the front of a Royal Naval vessel. Anywhere else you see an identical flag on land, well, traditionally it is just a Union flag only. So only a Union Jack when displayed upon the jackmast of a British naval ship. We've got this visiting ship here, the Holland, a Dutch warship, came up on Friday afternoon, passed up through Tower Bridge, and any visiting ships, they berth alongside the HMS Belfast. So the warship on the inside, the Belfast, a C-35 town-class cruiser. It is permanently moored here, and it has been since the 1970s. The Belfast, it saw action during the Second World War, and it last fired its guns during the Korean campaign in the early 1950s. You can explore all 9 decks of the ship as part of the Imperial War Museum. It is a fantastic day out on board the Belfast for all the family, and I have fond memories of exploring it myself when I was younger. Now folks, as I did mention earlier, we do like to keep the centre aisle clear. Understandably, everyone wants to get a nice photo. Now, we've done this trip a few times, and we like to get you the best possible photo. Now, you might have noticed over there on the left, tea warehouse is actually the largest tea warehouse in the world. Ships like the Cutty Sark that we'll see in Greenwich, they would race back from the Far East with tea, and quite often the first ship back alongside would get the best price for their product. And there is an old stereotype that the British are very fond of their tea, and it is absolutely true, as tea was once worth its weight in gold. Look above these balconies and you can see the word Spice carved into the brickwork there. So Spice is kept in this building, coming from India. Now, these buildings today, they're no longer warehouses. As you can see, they're luxury riverside apartments with nice river-facing balconies, and they're worth about £2 million each for a 1-bedroom apartment. On the right-hand side, in between the buildings, is St Saviour's Dock, and this leads up to a very historic part of London, known as the Dockhead of Bermondsey. Now, look into the right, look to the end of the creek. It's up there, that's Jacob's Island. It's known locally as Jacob's Island, and it's here where they filmed the musical adaptation of Oliver Twist. Very famous musical film, Lionel Bart's version of Oliver, filmed in the area on the right. So this is all Bermondsey, southeast London, a very poor and deprived area once upon a time. And there's lots of old cobbled back streets, lots of old warehouses, and it does retain character from its Dickensian past. Now, these modern apartment buildings over to the left, these are designed purposefully so that every single, they're designed to look like 3 French soldiers marching. So it's quite often the case with modern architecture, there's a concept, and these were designed to look like French soldiers. Now, I don't know what the architect was on at the time. There was some heavy medication. So what I can work out is that these sloping roofs are their berets and the towers their bayonets. That's some quirky architecture, and we will see a lot more of this on the way down. Now, this construction site on the right, this is one of 11 Tideway Tunnel project sites. They are building a super sewer for London underneath the river itself. So it's going to take 15 years to complete at the cost of £5 billion. So a super sewer being constructed beneath the river. Now, up until very recently, there was a huge grey shed here. They've recently demolished it, but it was from this site where they lowered the TBM, a tunnel boring machine, sophisticated drilling machine that went underneath the river from here, and it's come out in a place called Beckton in East London. So the tunnel is well underway, and it's about 10 years into the 15-year estimated duration of the project. Building on the left now, called Oliver's Wharf. Now, many famous people have lived in this building over the years. It was probably the first old Victorian warehouse to be converted into luxury, unaffordable apartments. You've had the likes of Dame Helen Mirren, Robert De Niro, and the singer Cher. Do you remember Cher? Yeah. She used to live in that top right apartment at Oliver's Wharf. Now, a true story is Cher. She got fed up of us pointing out to where she lived. She actually complained to our company, City Cruises. This is where we come to work on the right. So just across the river, she phoned us up and she said, Can you tell the crew on the boats to stop pointing out my apartment? People are turning up outside my apartment, stalking me. Okay, so to this day, I still don't know how she made the connection. We got the blame. We got the blame for people turning up at her apartment. Anyway, to cut a long story short, what happened was eventually, she got so annoyed that she no longer lives there. Okay, she has moved away. She's moved a bit further down the river, and I'll point it out as we go. On the left-hand side, you've got the River Police. The River Police are the oldest uniformed police in the world. There were police on the River Thames before there was police on the land, and they were started by the owners of the East and West India Trading Company. Okay, about 30% of all of the world's trade, it came through the busy port of London, and about 30% of all of that cargo was going missing. It was being stolen by pirates. Now, if you were found guilty of piracy, smuggling or theft, you'd be sentenced to death. You'd have been marched down the stairs here at Wapping, and you'd have been chained to the beach at low tide. Now, a man to suffer this fate was Captain Kidd, and there's a pub in his memory there on the left. Okay, Captain Kidd, he was a Scottish sea captain. He was employed by the Crown to tackle piracy, but he found it more profitable to become a pirate himself. He was sentenced to death, and he suffered what was known as the Grace of Wapping. Okay, now the area on the left is Wapping, and the Grace of Wapping was where you were drowned on the shores here. You were chained to the beach, left for 3 tides to pass over your head. But there was nothing graceful about it. There was known as the Grace of Wapping. So thousands of pirates drowned in the shores to our left. On the right-hand side, that church, that is St Mary's Church in Rotherhithe. Buried in that church, in the cemetery, is Captain Christopher Jones, and he was the captain of the famous pilgrim ship, the Mayflower. Now there's a pub on the right. See where those people are on the balcony? You've got 2 flags there. You've got the Union flag and the American flag, United States flag. The Mayflower pub, on top of the pub, a little weather. And today that pub, it is owned by a very famous British actor by the name of Sir Ian McKellen, and he played Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. Sir Ian McKellen, a local resident and a regular patron of the pub. He is now the owner, the landlord of the Grapes. On display behind the bar is the wizard staff used to portray Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. And I've seen him in there myself. He does the pub quiz fortnightly on a Wednesday. Go in there on a Wednesday night, Sir Ian McKellen, he is emceeing the pub quiz on a Wednesday night. As we come around the bend, well, you're looking up to your left now, you can see an aeroplane taking off. Okay, that aeroplane, that has just taken off from the London City Airport. Now, the Canary Wharf buildings, they're in the direct flight path of the airport, and that is why the building with the pyramid on top, it has the flashing light there for nighttime landings and takeoffs. So Canary Wharf, the area on the left, the building with the pyramid on top, that is number 1 Canada Square, sometimes referred to as the Canada Tower. Canary Wharf, but it is the entire area, and it gets its name quite simply from the cargo that would have unloaded here. So ships would come over from the Canary Islands, delivering fruit from the Canary Islands, hence the name Canary Wharf. And it is the new financial area of London. They expanded away from the city of London out here to the East End, and the Docklands was abandoned in the late 60s, early 70s. So it is built on what was once docks. Now, I do often get asked by our passengers, what is there to see and do at Canary Wharf? Is it worth a visit? Should we go here? And the short answer to you folks is no. Avoid it. Because it's full of bankers. And I can't imagine anything worse than being surrounded by bankers. During the busy working week, from Monday to Friday, an estimated 300,000 office workers attend the area, so it is very, very busy. If you go on a weekend, however, like today, or a Saturday or Sunday, they've all gone home. All of the bankers, they disappear on the weekends. So if you go on a Saturday or Sunday, you've got the Docklands Museum over here. Okay, it's very interesting. You've got bars and restaurants that surround the old basins that were once docks, and a couple of high-rise bars and restaurants as well. It's a well-connected area. You've got the Jubilee line here and the Docklands Light Railway, the DLR as well. Now over to the right, just coming into view in the distance, there's the Shards. Okay, we passed that earlier, the Shard of Glass. That is the UK's tallest building. And follow that along, just also coming into view, is the modern skyline in the City of London. Now for those of you who travel down from Westminster, you'll know that the river runs between those landmarks. Okay, it's where we've just departed from, more or less, over there. Okay, so we were travelling in an easterly direction. We've recently come around the bend, and I can tell you now, the boat is heading directly south. So the River Thames, it does run across the south of England, west to east, east to west, but it does bend in a series of points and nesses. So you might have noticed the wind's picked up a bit, we're copying that easterly breeze. We're here in these buildings. This is where they had all of the stores and the supply for the British Navy. And so all of the rope, all of the sails, all of the winches and pulleys for the ships, and most importantly, all of the rum was kept in these buildings on the way. Now rum was actually a very important supply for the Navy. Not only did it improve morale, but it also stopped water from going stagnant at sea. Okay, diluted rum, or watered down rum, or rum down water, whichever way you want to work it. It was known as grog. Now, in Greenwich, if you're into your maritime history, and even if you're not, you go into the Maritime Museum. Okay, it's free to visit. It's one of the finest maritime museums in the country, and on display in the museum is Lord Nelson's jacket. Okay, Horatio Lord Nelson, he died in battle. He was killed in the Battle of Trafalgar, and they returned his body to England after he died for his state funeral. Okay, so his jacket is on display in the museum. Now, to bring his body back, they preserved him in a barrel of rum. They pickled his body in a barrel of rum, and on the return voyage, the sailors, they were drinking from the barrel in which Lord Nelson was pickled. And this is where you get the expression or the saying of a stiff drink, or tapping the Admiral. You can go and see the jackets on display here in Greenwich. Now at the top of the hill in Greenwich Park is the Royal Observatory. Now it's here where lies the Greenwich Meridian, okay, the line of 0 degrees longitude. Now you can actually do what they say is impossible at Greenwich. You can be in two places at once. You can put 1 foot in the eastern hemisphere and 1 foot in the western hemisphere. And you know you're doing it because there is a metal strip that runs along the floor. So it is here when you walk from the pier, a bit of a steep climb up the hill. But when you get there, you've got the Meridian line, and also the view back across London from the top of the hill is fantastic. Okay? You don't have to climb too high to be rewarded with a fantastic view. London is very flat. So you climb to the top of the hill, you can look across the island, you can look back across central London, you can see Westminster, the Houses of Parliament, and the St Paul's Cathedral as well. So here we go, the Seabourn Venture cruise ship visiting Greenwich. And as you can see, as I mentioned, this is a very deep part of the river, the area of Deptford. The Greenwich ships here. So some of the smaller cruise ships, they will go up through Tower Bridge. Okay, they will berth alongside the Belfast. The ones that cannot fit through the bridge, they come up and berth here. So he would have come up yesterday, this ship, and it would have been turned by tugboats. Okay, it would have been assisted by powerful boats. They would have swung it round and put it on the mooring here. Pretty impressive though, isn't it, these cruise ships. There's a tall ship ahead of us, the Cutty Sark, the 3-masted tall ship, built for the tea trade. She was launched in Dumbarton in Scotland in 1869, and the Cutty Sark, it was the fastest ship in the world, the fastest of the tea clippers. It would travel at 26 knots, very fast for a sailing ship. We've come down the river today at about 8 knots, and we've got 2 propellers on board this boat, so very fast sailing vessel of her day. Now looking up to the right, look beyond the ship and look at the top of the hill. Amongst the trees, that is the Royal Observatory, okay, at the top of the hill in Greenwich Park. Now, looking on top of that building, on top of one of the towers, there's a mast, okay, like a T-bar. And at the bottom of that mast is a big red ball. Now every day at 4, and therefore they can calculate the different time zones wherever they went around the planet. Now they say if you're a good timekeeper, you are on the ball. And that still happens today out of tradition. The ball will rise at 5 to 1. And backdrop and it's 1 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. The Old Royal Naval College is ahead of us here, designed by Sir Christopher Wren and Inigo Jones. Today the buildings are occupied by the Greenwich University and the prestigious Trinity House School of Music. Parts of the buildings are open to the public. You can actually go into the painted hall and look up at the beautiful painted ceiling. It is second only to the Sistine Chapel. I mentioned the museum as